Hey there, bimbos. Welcome to Gamer Frauds. I'm Spencer.
And I'm Alaska, and we thought since now everyone is playing Resident Evil Village and getting back into the Resident Evil world, that we would tell you our controversial take for the ranking of all the Resident Evil games.
Hell yeah.
This is kind of a relaxed video. We're not on camera because we look very crusty right now and haven't dyed our hair in many weeks.
Nope.
So, just enjoy our lovely voices in this podcast setting.
These dulcet tones, as
Yes.
the Weasley twins would say. And we have a pretty big announcement. We are finally starting our Twitch streaming channel. Yay! On June 15th, and they will be Tuesday and Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So come hang out with us. We're planning to do a bunch of fun games and just have a chill good time. All right.
Absolutely. A little groundwork here. We're only going to be ranking the games that we have actually played. So there's basically no side games on this list. I think the only side game that actually made it onto the list is Revelations 2.
Yeah.
Which we'll explain in detail why that is even on the list later on. And because our picks for number 1 and number 10, which will be the last one for our list, are definitely the most controversial, we are going to be starting from the middle and working our way out so that you guys can get the full effect. So enjoy. So we're going to start with 5 and 6.
Okay. So, number 5, we have Resident Evil 3, the remaster.
Obviously.
And number 6 is Resident Evil 2, the remaster.
Remakes, I guess.
Remakes, right. Yeah.
So, obviously these are great games. I know this seems like they're low on the list to start dead in the middle. We just really love the Resident Evil series, so there's a lot of games that unfortunately got those coveted spots before it. And it kind of works out because these were really neck and neck in our rankings. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out which one was going to be before the other. I also feel like these games are really similar.
Yeah.
They have very similar gameplay styles, stories. Obviously, they both take place in Raccoon City. They're both remakes. They have a lot of the same things. But we do have reasons for why 3 took a top spot over 2.
Right.
Yeah.
The first reason is that 2 just has... their last 2 locations are just not as good as the rest of the game.
Yeah.
The police station, especially in Leon's campaign, is really amazing, and it's super scary. Tyrant is there, just
terrifying.
Stomping around.
Yes.
Just terrifying the shit out of you.
It's amazing. I love the way that they reveal all of the different codes and secrets. They really guide you through it. The keys, I think, are super fun.
The keys are awesome.
Which, spoiler alert, we are getting tattoos of the keys.
Yes.
Later this year as well. We'll definitely make a video about it.
Absolutely. We're so excited for those.
So that one is unmatched, and I feel like if Resident Evil 2 was basically just a police station, it would take a higher spot.
Absolutely.
But the sewers are not that interesting. Like, visually, they're very boring to me. There's not a lot to look at. They're kind of tedious a little bit. Yeah. Like, the game is not super long, so it never gets incredibly tedious, but it is sort of like okay, we gotta go all the way back and then all the way over here.
Right.
And I just feel like the chess puzzle isn't really that interesting.
No, it's not really that interesting.
I was like, if you're gonna do a riddle, I prefer like a full ass riddle. But I feel like that one is a little bit just, I don't know, lackluster.
And then having to go from all of that tedium into the Umbrella Labs with the puzzles that are also very easy to solve is just, it wasn't a good enough pickup to like kind of, to kind of have that, like, dip in the middle, which is almost excusable, if you've got, like, a good ending. If
Absolutely.
You've got a little long in the middle is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But to go to kind of just, like, it just peters out, basically.
Right. And it really bums me out because I feel like going into the labs deep underground is a really interesting location. But I just felt like it wasn't hard enough. Like, it's almost like the police station is kind of difficult when you first play it. It's kind of hard to figure out things. Like, they're leading you can figure it out. It's not, like, unplayable, but it's more difficult than the sewers, and especially down in the lab, which feel like cakewalks once you get down there. Like, there just isn't a big enough jump for me as far as, like, difficulty. I kind of like a game that gets gradually more difficult as you go, which isn't something Resident Evil is known for, but a lot of other games are that way. You know, you learn more skills, you have more things that you can do, so the gameplay is a little bit technically more difficult.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like I wanted that in a puzzle form. Like, I wanted a little bit harder puzzles. I wanted it to be bigger.
Right.
I almost feel like the sewer part could have been, like, really restricted to one thing. And then once you go down to the lab, that's, like, massive.
Right. And, you know, you learn so much, like, information in the police station, and there's so many different, like, you know, clues and doors and all this stuff that you have to know just generally about the, like, canon of this, like, you know, universe, basically.
Yeah.
There, that it just feels like, okay, well, none of that got used then, which I feel like is perfect for puzzle making. Is
Absolutely.
like, learn, like, you know, all of the information that you've learned earlier in the game now culminates in, like, a puzzle down here or something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like that could have been a good way to carry it through, like, finding stuff in the police station that connects directly to the lab. And I feel like they do a good job, kind of, with the carry through. He just pulled my... I'm assuming, is Cash over there?
Yes.
Okay, I was like, either a ghost just pulled down my robe off the wall, or the Menace did. Okay, all good.
The Midnight Menace.
But, what was I saying?
We were talking about
the connection. So I thought, like, that was kind of cool in Claire's campaign, when you go to the orphanage, and you there is, like, a small connection between things. And also, I like that I feel like the orphanage is a cool location. I would have liked to spend more time there, especially as Claire. I just feel like it could have been bigger and scarier.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would love to see, like, some weird zombie kids. Like, that'd be crazy. I feel like they really could have, like, bolstered that a bit more.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it just felt like they were too separated, and I always get bummed out. Like, we actually haven't played it for our channel, although technically we did, but all of the footage got damaged, which is really sad because it was very fun.
Yeah.
We will be replaying it in October, but we don't have it uploaded.
Yeah, tech is hard.
Yes, tech, you know, listen, OBS does not like us.
It does not like us.
But I don't know, it's just like, every time I leave the police station, I'm always like, ugh.
Yeah.
The rest is a chore.
Yeah, it's like, well, the game's kind of done in my mind.
Yeah.
Of, like, what I like about it. Absolutely.
So 3 is a great game. Jill is a really good pro tag. I love her. She's super fun. She's so, like, confident.
Yeah.
I love the scene in the train where he's like, watch out, they're professionals. And she's like, so am I. Like, she's cool as hell. Like,
so cool. Absolutely.
Like, Leon and Claire are like little tiny babies.
Yeah. They're just so, like, fresh-faced, like, doe-eyed, ready for the world.
Which is cute. Like, it has its own merits for sure. Like,
Absolutely.
Leon being like, you can do this. Like, talking to himself the whole time. But Jill, I think, is more fun to play as. And I do feel like the story is stronger. Like, the side characters are really fun. You really get invested with, like, Carlos and stuff. I really just enjoyed those elements of it. Excuse you.
Sure.
And I really like the seamless blend from cutscene to gameplay in 3. That was something that I'd never really experienced in another game until playing that.
Yeah.
Especially in that beginning part where it's like, you're being thrown around by Nemesis, and then you're playing again.
Right.
Like, it goes right back and forth, so there's not that hard cut to, like, okay, we're in a cutscene.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're not. And they did a good job with that, actually, in Village, but there were a couple moments where I felt like it could have been done better. Like, it could have been a little bit more seamless.
Right.
But they did a great job with that in 3, and I thought that was, like, very cutting edge as far as, like, when it came out.
Absolutely. Yeah, which of course you can't fault that against 2 because they, you know, remastered or remade that earlier. You know, like 3 was a later remake, so they had better, you know, tech and all that. But that was a really good step forward in terms of, like, you know, the kind of animation and the kind of work that they were doing.
Yeah.
For sure. Really added, like, a different element that you really want out of survival horror as well.
Yeah.
You know, that really immersive world, because that's really where you get those spookies.
Absolutely. And, you know, actually, it was like, going back to 2, the one thing that really disappoints me, and I noticed that this is the same thing they do in the original Resident Evil, which we played the remastered version of, I'm assuming it's basically the same, is that the 2 different campaigns are the same campaign with, like, 1 or 2 small changes. And to me, that's a letdown.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, if you're going to give me multiple campaigns, I want them to be very different.
Yeah.
I want there to be things that it's like, this is a huge overhaul. Like, they're the same puzzles.
Right.
It's like when I get down into the lab with, you know, Claire after playing Leon's, it's like, it's the same thing.
Right.
There's not really that much different.
No.
And to me, that's like, it's just the same game twice.
Right. It's like the only differences between their campaigns are like chronologically which character got there first,
right.
like within, you know, the time span of
and
that
like
night.
the side characters.
Yeah.
It's like, are you interacting with like Sherry or is it Ada?
Right. Exactly.
And like when you run into Tyrant, and even that isn't that different.
It's not really that different.
So
No.
that definitely lets me down a bit. Obviously 3 is just the one campaign, but I feel like it's a strong enough campaign that it does it really well. And I feel like the locations are really interesting.
Yeah.
Like just the little town in the beginning is super, I think it's a really fun setup for it. And then as you move through the rest of the game, I just feel like it's really solid. I do feel like the lab at the end isn't as good. I feel like they really struggle with the end of the game. So it's like the last location. And Village is almost this way as well.
Yeah.
Where it's like the first 2 locations are really good.
They're
like, they
really
are
good.
solid. And then by the time you get to the, you know, Heisenberg's warehouse, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
But it's like there's not a lot to look at. It didn't feel like they put as much work into it.
No.
And that's kind of how I felt about the lab in 3. But it's not enough to like fully pull me away from the game in the way that 2 is, where it's kind of just like, oh, we just got to get it done.
Right. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but in 3, do you like have little moments where you play as Carlos, right?
Yeah,
where it's
do.
not just Jill the whole time, which
You
I feel
play
like...
as Carlos in the police station, actually.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And that was a really great callback to 2 as well. They really connected back to the game before in that way. But I feel like that's a really good way if you don't want to make 2 like full campaigns to have, you know, experience being the other character without like, you know, taking it away from the player of just like, oh, well, each campaign is basically the same thing.
Right.
know?
And that's definitely like a Resident Evil staple, I feel like. They do that a lot in their games. So let's move up a bit. We're going to go to number 4 and then we'll do 7. So number 4 is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
Yeah.
I know. It's crazy.
I know. Insanity that we would even put it at 4. But we have our reasons.
We do. And I feel like the first one is already a controversial statement, which is that we love Ethan Winters.
We love him. I honestly don't understand the hate for him at all.
No. I'm like, he's super fun. I love that he's just like this dumb dude who like is just looking for his wife. Like he is so unprepared for everything.
Yeah.
I think that's funny. He's a great, like, reactionary character. It actually makes me think of, like, this is a deep rabbit hole, but for Silent Hill fans, I love the evolution of their protagonist into Downpour, which I know a lot of people didn't like. It was, like, their last game before basically everything went to shit and they stopped making games. But that character in that game, Murphy Pendleton, is very reactionary. He's, like... holy shit, like he's like yelling all the time and like losing his mind in the way that you would be, whereas like James Sunderland is in Silent Hill 2 is like so unfazed by everything, where I'm like, I kind of enjoy that Ethan like is like, what the fuck is wrong with these people, like he's like freaking out too. He's kind of saying things that like you would say as the player, and to me that's like a very fun protagonist. He's very like fun. Interactive in that way. His quips feel very like much of the, you know, that normal guy, instead of like, you know, a character that's seen it all, you know, has been constantly fighting bioterror, you know, for his whole career. Chris, where you're like, oh yeah, he's like, this shit again. It's like, I just want to kill myself. Truly. So I do love that. We have a change in protag halfway through with switching to Mia, which I think is pretty fun. Yeah. I love the location. I think Louisiana is already a super creepy, like, setting for it. I think that's a great setting for Resident Evil to go in. Absolutely. Like, backwoods, bayou feel. The Bakers are really compelling villains. Super compelling. And they're very interactive. This was something that I loved about this game that I had never experienced, is the way that the antagonists of the game interact with you as a player. So, like, the first time I played it, I was trying to, like, fight off Jack just, like, while I was running away from him.
Yeah.
And I ran out of ammo, and he says to Ethan, he's like, out of ammo, boy? And it's like, to me, that's such a crazy thing. You're like, oh my god, he's talking, like, directly to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, you know, not only the change to first person, which is, like, not common in these games anyways, but yeah, having those kind of, like, you know, little combo things with the actual antagonist.
That won't come up unless something happens.
Right.
Like, they're not just, like, run of the mill.
Right, exactly. It has to be, like, specific to, like, your situation that you're in.
It makes me think of Lucas, whenever you're going through his different setups and you're avoiding the bombs, like, you're shooting them.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's not why I put that there, Ethan. Like, he says all of these things to you, and I think that's so, and then he'll, like, react differently whether or not you get hit with them.
Right.
To me, that's very funny.
Yeah.
I just think that's a really good game design. You know, I don't know. I think all around, I think it's really scary in a way that's, like, not overwhelming and not as, like, overbearing. Like, I feel like a lot of games, like, want to be so scary that it's almost, like, kind of boring. Like, Evil Within, which we will have a video up soon, probably in the next week or so, of us trying to play it, where it was, like, sometimes it felt like they were trying too hard to be scary. Yeah. And at some point, you're like... Whereas, like... I felt like the locations in 7 on their own weren't scary. It was the added little things that made it creepy. And to me, that's much better, like, story building and like, world building. So I just feel like overall it's a better game.
Absolutely. I mean, and you can look at it, too, with, like, how scary Jack Baker is. Like, just Jack, particularly, of, like... If someone, I could see someone, like, looking at, like, Tyrant or looking at Nemesis from, like, the outside, not really knowing the RE world, and thinking, okay, I build, like, weird, creepy, tall, alien-looking man, and that is Scary Guy. But that's, like, not what's really that scary about the two of them, especially, like, Tyrant. The scary thing about him is that he's stomping after you, and he's not moving quickly, because he is so confident that he will kill you. And Nemesis the same way of, he's like, I know I'm gonna catch you. It's, like, not a problem for me. This is easy. And, that, like, that's the terrifying thing. And so to have Jack Baker, this, like, you know, just some old country guy, you know, be just as terrifying as those other two, because they know what's scary. And the scary thing is, like, that unhinged, you know, like, manic, you know, look in Jack's eye. Like, that's the thing about Jack that's scary. So he is just on par with these other two, like, crazy alien-like, you know, futuristic villains. Because they really got to the essence of, like, what can make a character scary. That's, like, so cool about it.
It's I mean, they did a great job with it. I think it's just, like, very inventive. I think it's super fun. That's why, I mean, originally we made this list, 7 ended up actually below 2 and 3, and then we ended up moving it up because we were like, it's just such a good game.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've played it many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we have to, like, emphasize again, too, that we love the RE, like, universe as a whole. So, like, it's so hard because you're thinking, well, on a top 10 list, like, how could 7 even be, you know, 7th place? Or now where it officially is on our list at 4th place. You're still like, it's an incredible game. How is it that low? But it's just, like, everything in this universe is just so good. Right. Like, all of their games are so well done. Like, we just love Capcom.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just love their work. So it's, like, it feels weird. Yeah, we first made this list and we were like, really? Does it have to go there? Yeah. But it does. Because everything else just really holds up.
Absolutely. And I feel like we definitely want to emphasize that even more, where it's just like, this is definitely like labor of love kind of thing. Like there's a reason we started with Resident Evil. Like, it's very much our bread and butter as far as our channel. It's hard to choose. Like, we just genuinely really love them. Absolutely. So it's like, it's a difficult list to make for sure.
For sure.
All right, should we go over number 7?
Yeah.
Number 7 is the original Resident Evil, obviously the remastered, because we have never played.
Yeah.
That one literally came out before you were born.
Yeah, literally, like, I think it was, like, what, like...
96.
96, yeah. 2 years before I was even born.
That's crazy. I was 3 years old.
Wow.
Wild. All right, so this game, we have actually played the entirety of this game, and then the external drive that it was on was damaged. Yeah. And... rest in peace, because we never got that footage back.
No.
And probably never will.
And, sorry, and we also lost all of that footage while we were already uploading some of them.
Yeah.
So I think we have either 1 or 2 parts of playing the original Resident Evil on our channel that we can now just not finish.
Yeah, we'll just never get to finish it. And it took us... So the first time around we played as Chris, it took us 16 hours to finish it.
Yes.
It was very long. And I will say that most of that time is watching doors open, because if you have played that game, you know that the door animations are so long. It takes so long to get from room to room, and you have to move through 40,000 rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, it took us so long just to get out of the mansion part.
Yeah.
It was a tough go. And we didn't find the map the first time around because it was in a really weird place.
It was,
Until, like, I don't think we ever found it. I don't think we found it until we read something later, and then we got it as, was it Jill?
I think it's Jill, yeah. Yeah, we had to read a walkthrough to be able to find the map.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have not known what it was.
Yeah. So that was pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
And this is also something that, I don't know if anybody realizes this, we actually got a very rare achievement on our first playthrough, unintentionally, because we missed a bunch of stuff in the last area, which is... I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called.
That, like, underground area. But basically we missed a bunch of stuff, so we didn't rescue Jill or anyone. And so we got a rare achievement where we escaped as Chris without saving anybody. We did not fight Tyrant at the end. We didn't do anything. We, like... You go down and you talk to Albert, and then you fight Tyrant in there. And then we just left.
Yeah, we just got on a helicopter and left, because that's what we thought was next. We got, like, stuck too. Like, it wasn't, like, for a lack of trying. Like, we had tried a bunch of doors, and we were like, I don't know where we're supposed to be going next. And we happened to stumble upon the exit, and we were like, I think this is where we're supposed to go, because we can open this door. And got on that helicopter, and then saw the little bar at the bottom. Like, I think it was, like, 1.05% of people do it.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's something crazy low, or maybe it was like 0.15%. Oh my god, it was like left without saving anyone, and we didn't even know there was anyone to save, because we didn't even find the stairway to go down to Jill's like jail cell, because it wasn't until we played as Jill that we even found the staircase to go see Chris down there.
Because you have to, there's the thing where you have to put the 3 like CD-ROMs into the different ones in different areas, and we just didn't find the third one. I think we just, like, walked past it, and it was in that, like, boiler room, so we couldn't see it, and so we just walked right past it, and we were like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But we were just like, I don't know, like, I guess we're gonna find that later, and just never found it, and didn't save anyone, so... Yeah, you have to do the 3 CD-ROMs that open that, like, hardcore tour.
Yes,
and that's how you got the, like...
Right. Yeah, the door that we ended up going through that was the exit it wasn't past the hardcore door. It wasn't, like, anything special, any other doors. So we were just like, I don't know, this has gotta be it. Like, this has just gotta be the next spot to find the next CD-ROM. Which was not true.
Yeah, we just, like, we just dipped without saving anybody.
Not a single person.
That was pretty funny. Then we played as Jill, and we beat it in 8 hours, so we did half our time, so it was pretty good.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
Again, most of that was probably opening the door.
Yeah. Which is, I feel like, you know, a lot of our time got shaved off knowing the layout of the mansion, so we didn't have to open as many doors as we did the first time around of just, like, stumbling around. Dear God, that probably cut off, like, 4 hours on its own.
Probably.
Yeah.
So... I feel like there's not a whole lot I can say about this game as far as, like, why it's at this place. I think the main reason is that the ones that fall below it are really just have a lot of negatives to it.
Yes.
I feel kind of neutral about this game. I'll probably never play it again. Like, it was fine. It was pretty fun. We definitely found out that we were attracted to Albert Wesker.
Oh, absolutely.
We were like, oh,
Daddy
he's kind of hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty fun.
Yes.
But, you know, for the most part, it's like, it's okay. It's kind of an older game, so it's a little bit more difficult to play. And it definitely borders on tedious when you have to wait so long to load everything.
Right.
I think when you play a lot of newer games,
yeah,
once you're doing that for a while, you go to play an older game, that can get very annoying very quickly.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot harder to get to the end of it. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, it's not a bad game. most of, the kind of things that you get annoyed with are just, because of the era. It's just the time that it was made in. It's like you can't really fault it on that. So yeah, it's kind of in this neutral place of 7, which I feel like is appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk number 3. As we go up and down from here, I feel like a lot of these are going to be pretty
controversial.
So buckle in. You can unsubscribe below. So number 3 is the only side game that made it onto this list. Is Resident Evil Revelations 2.
Yes, specifically the second one.
Yes, because the first one is fine. We played that together for a bit, and then I ended up finishing it, but yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it's whatever.
I was like, it's fine. Revelations 2. So we have a whole story for this, but first let's talk about the merits of this one. Why this is so high up on the list. So I am of the firm belief that this is a very underrated game. I think that this game is super fun. I think the story is great. It definitely has a lot of like Silent Hill-esque features to it, which I'm a big Silent Hill fan. I talk about it fucking all the time. Yeah. And I think that that's something that really makes me like this game. The fact that it has multiple endings based on choices you make. The way that all the characters are trapped on an island by somebody else. Yeah. And it's like they're kind of being manipulated by an outside force. I think is super fun. I just really like the local co-op element to it. Yeah. I like that the characters are different. I think this is something that we didn't get from Resident Evil 5 specifically, which I'll talk more about that when we get to that one. But I think that something that I really like about that is that you have to work together. It's not just like you have the same skills and it's just like whatever. You really have to talk to each other and figure out how to play, because you don't have the same skills and you need each other to move forward. Right.
It's not like, you've got all the same guns and you're just going and blasting. Yeah. You have, especially with the Barry and Natalia campaign, very specific skills to Natalia that Barry would not be able to get through this world without her.
Absolutely.
Even though he's the one packing all the ammo.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's such a cool element to it. And I feel like maybe, and this is a generalization without a doubt, but I feel like maybe that's why some men maybe don't like this game as much, is when they play it with other men. Right. It almost makes you feel like you're in like a lesser position when you play this like secondary character. Right. But I feel like it's easier for women to kind of just be like, it's fine. Yeah. I think there's more pressure on men to be like the manly character. Right. Yeah. So feeling like kind of helpless where you don't really have any weapons might not be as fun for somebody else. Like maybe that's just not a big of a draw. Right. But I actually thought that was really fun. And as we'll get into this, so just to go over the first part of this. Yeah. This was actually the first game we ever played together. This game, I think we played it like 6 months before we started our channel. Yeah.
We played it. I, got the Xbox One, and then we, were just playing games, just to, like, play games. I think we started with Silent Hill, right?
Yeah, I basically forced you to play Silent Hill 2 and 3.
Yeah, which were terrifying, but they were really great, like, intro games for someone who, I, like, almost never played video games as a child. Like, occasionally and mostly on the Wii. Like, I think I touched an Xbox, like, thrice in my childhood. So, as someone not very used to this, like, kind of console gaming, that was, like, a good way to, like, start into it. But yeah, this was our first game that we ever played, and we just looked up, like, what local co-op games are there, and this is the one that came up, so we just decided to play it.
Absolutely. And I have just a little background, played games a little bit more. I was by no means, like, a gamer. My brother had the PlayStation 2 as a kid. Actually, Resident Evil 4 was the first scary game I ever played because my older brother had it. Right. And when I was in college, I played a lot of the Silent Hill games and some other ones on the PlayStation 3 because that's what was out when I was in college, not to age myself. But, it was a lot of random, like, survival horror, so I wasn't really good at, like, first-person shooters or anything. Right. I wasn't a true gamer, I feel like. But I did have a little bit more experience with gaming, and I feel like at this point in our gaming careers, we've definitely evened out on skill level. Yeah. But at that point, I definitely had a lot more skills with it. So this one was definitely an interesting one because it just happened to be when we played it that you chose the character that has all of the guns. Yeah. And I was the character that didn't get a gun. Yeah. Like, I just had, you know, a pole to fight with, or the brick if you're Natalia.
Right.
So it definitely was a different dynamic, specifically for us, because you had no experience with this almost at all. Like, we had played Silent Hill and that was it.
Yeah. Which had, like, I think did he have a gun?
Yeah, you had guns.
Yeah, you have guns in Silent Hill.
But they kind of auto-aim for you.
Yeah, and he, like, you know, looks at, like, an enemy before you even really see him, kind of thing. Yeah. There's a lot of helpful things in that one.
Right.
And, like, less, like, freedom to kind of control with those kind of, like, fixed perspectives.
Yeah, everything's fixed, basically.
Yeah, so, you know, not having to do the camera and movement things, you know, it was a lot. I was getting a lot of, like, controls for someone who was just starting out in video games.
Right, and it was like, I was just the assist, which honestly I think was, like, the best possible thing. I don't think it would have been as fun if it had been reversed.
No, absolutely. I feel like, it was, like, almost like you were teaching me how to drive. You know, you were just there to help kind of, you know, not have too many things on your own, so you could kind of guide me with what I had to do. Right. But, you know, I was actually in the, you know, driver's seat getting the experience of, like, okay, how do you even play this video game?
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So there's, like, definitely holds I think one of the reasons that this is so high on the list is because it's very special to us. Yeah. But unfortunately, this game is cursed for us specifically. So let's get into this. We played this game, I don't know, like earlier this year. Yeah. And we had played, I remember. 1 second. We were going to play Resident Evil 7, which we have an Xbox. And so we play everything basically on Game Pass unless we have to buy it. Yeah. So we were like, oh yeah, I'm sure we already have it. Like, it's on Game Pass, we'll get it. And we went to go play it. We had the camera set up. Everything was rolling. Yeah. Open the Xbox. Do not have Resident Evil 7 downloaded. Nope. It had been deleted, I'm sure, to make space for something else. So yeah. We were like, alright, so we're gonna have to wait for this to download, so do we want to just go ahead and play Revelations 2? Like, we already we had to buy that one, so we were like, we'll just go ahead and play that. Yeah. So we played, I think, about a chapter and a half.
I think so.
I think that's what it was, and the next day I was looking through the footage and it was all fucked up. Like, it got so messed up.
So corrupted.
It was when we were still recording on your laptop, so the OBS like couldn't handle the power that was coming into it.
No, and I think it was like my charger wouldn't like charge my computer fast enough with OBS and something else open, and there was just too much going on for my poor little, you know, MacBook to handle. Yeah. And it was like, you know, starting like 100% like, you know, charge plugged in, and it was down to like 7% after like an hour and a half. Yeah. It was insanity.
Right. So it was like, it was a mess. So we, by that point the next day, 7 was downloaded. So we abandoned the project. We were like, okay, whatever. Yeah. We don't have the footage anyways. We would have to start over. Let's just go to 7. Yeah. So we went to 7. And then after we played that, we had played some other games, and we were kind of figuring out what we wanted to play in the meantime while we were waiting for Village to come out. So we were like, let's play Revelations 2 because, background first. Right. The first time we played this game, first game we ever played, we did not know that there were multiple endings. Right. So we got the bad ending. Yes. The first time. Yes. We did not know that. We were just like, guess that game's a bummer. Yeah.
Just ends like a fucking bummer.
Yeah, we were like, that's a really sad, actually. Yeah. So I had looked up that there were multiple endings, and kind of the one thing that got you a different, I didn't know what the ending was, the good one, but I knew that there was like a pivotal moment that we had missed. Right. So it was like, that was a big incentive for us to replay it, because it was like, okay, well, we have played it, so it's not going to be completely fresh reactions, but it's a completely different ending, so that'll be fun. Right. So we were like, okay, let's get into it. So we played the game all the way through. It was great. We had some great reactions. Yeah. The story was phenomenal. It was super, super fun. Just a great time. Yeah. And then, lo and behold, the fucking footage got... like damaged. Just all of it.
All of it got damaged. Yeah.
Like I think it was like 10 hours of footage. Yeah. Just lost.
Just absolutely lost.
It was very tragic. I was very sad. Yeah. And I was like, it's too fresh in our memory, so you can't just replay it. So I was like, whatever. Who knows? And we tried to play Revelations 1, and we were kind of just bored, and we were like, didn't think we were going to be that entertaining, so that was abandoned. And then we were playing The Medium, which you can see, our series. And if you have watched the whole thing, you know that part of our footage for that was messed up. It was in the middle of the game. It's almost non-important to the rest of the story. Really not that much happens in that one section.
Yeah.
But when we went back to check what had happened in that section, and we're looking at what we're talking about, in that video, we had told this story about how Revelations 2 had fucked up every single time we had tried to play it, and how it was cursed.
Yeah.
Which means the one time we bring it up, when we're recording other gameplay, it messes up that gameplay.
Yeah. And we need to do some sort of, like, protective spell at the end of this video to make sure, like, if you guys are hearing this video without, you know, and actually hearing this story, congratulations. This is the first time we've actually been able to communicate it to the public.
Right. We mentioned it once in our village playthrough and immediately was like,
hold on.
Wait.
We can't afford to mention that game in case it curses our village content. Like, we can't do that. We can't sacrifice this, like, beautiful game.
Oh my gosh. It was a mess. So that game, you know, that's a long-winded story, but I feel like it all goes into why Revelations 2, 1, even made it onto the list, and 2, is at the number 3 spot, above even 7.
We understand how biased it is, and we don't care.
Yeah, it's our list. You can make your own list.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, let's move on. Number 8 is Resident Evil 0.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is a main game. I'm not really counting that as a side game.
Yeah, I think it's, like, meant to be a main game, even though it is a prequel or whatever, you know, it's, like, it's part of the main storyline, I'm pretty sure.
I think so. This one, we actually haven't finished this game, so I know it's kind of, like, crazy that we're putting it on the list.
Yeah.
When there was something we have finished that never even made it on. But I feel like we have played enough of it to give our opinion as far as, like, where we would put this on the list. I have played most of it. And I do think it has some good things. I think the story is kind of interesting. I like the escaped convict angle. I think that's really funny.
Yeah.
And kind of a cool element to it, and being on the train. It's got some really good setups as far as what's going on. But unfortunately, it is very, just tedious. Like, it kind of has the same thing as the original Resident Evil, where it's all because of how old it is.
Right.
Like, most of the things, I'm like, if it had been made today, it probably would be a lot higher.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's like, it can't really... It's not its fault that it's so old,
Yeah.
but it makes the gameplay a little bit difficult to get through, and it's a lot harder to understand where you're supposed to go next. Like, it's a lot harder to pick up on those clues.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of... It becomes, like, a chore to play.
Do you, like, offhand know, like, when that was made?
I think it was very soon after the first one.
Okay, yeah, okay, so, like, in the 90s.
I think it was, no, I think, maybe not, maybe it was, like, 2001 or 2002.
Okay, yeah.
It's still pretty old,
Still pretty old, yeah. I mean, especially compared to, you know, all the other games.
So,
yeah.
Not a whole lot to say about this. But, you know... We're putting it there. Maybe one day we'll eventually play it all the way through.
You know, and I feel like, it makes the list too, you know, because of all of the interesting things about it. So maybe, hopefully, you know, Capcom decides to remaster it like they did 2 and 3, and then it could be a very excellent game.
Honestly, I mean, I would love to play it. I think, is it Rebecca Chambers?
Yes.
What's her name? I think she would be a great protagonist in, like, a new version. I would love to see her crazy outfit that she wears.
She needs to keep her cowgirl outfit. Absolutely.
Like, what is this? Everybody else is wearing, like, military outfits, and she's just like, I'm just out here.
She, like, knew the assignment. She was like, I have a mission. This is the outfit I'm picking.
Yes.
And I love that for her.
I love it. So definitely some good things. I really think the ones that fall, the 2 spots below this, they just have a lot of bad things. Like I said before, I'm like, they just... They earned their low spots in our ranking.
They sure did.
So let's move up first.
Yes, to number 2.
We're going to talk number 2. So, number 2 is Resident Evil Village.
Which
Resident
I feel
Evil
like
8.
is not even that controversial,
No,
because I feel like other people have favorite games that aren't Village, but it is controversial for what we put as number 1.
Yes.
So
this game, obviously it's brand new.
Yeah.
And There's a great plot.
Plot is a very funny way to say sexy villain.
Big booby mommy milkers. Hobo man.
Metal daddy. We don't care for Moreau.
Moreau can joke. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This game, I could say that there are a lot to say about this game.
Yeah.
I think this game is incredible. I think they did a phenomenal job.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, we love Ethan Winters. He's even funnier in this.
Yes.
I love how mad he is.
Yes.
I think that's so funny.
Yeah.
The change to Chris halfway through, or really, you know, like 90 of the way percent through,
Yeah.
is really fun. And it's a very different, like, genre almost. Like, it
Yeah.
feels like a Gears of War game.
Yeah.
Like, with the swarm, like the horde that they call it in Gears of War. Like,
Yeah.
that's, like, what it feels like of these different guns. It's definitely, like, a way different game for, like, just that one section, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I love all the Easter eggs. I love the way that you can go back and play 7 and 8 to build up to the twist in 8.
Yeah.
I think that that's phenomenal. I love different worlds that you have to go through. I love that. I think that is a great setup for a game where you go to the castle and you come out and the Duke is like, you got these 4 places to go to. And it's like, that's so cool. That is, it just like builds excitement for the player. The Duke is the best part of the whole game.
The Duke is my favorite character in probably almost all of the entire RE universe.
He's so fun.
He's so fun.
I think he's hilarious. He gives
Yeah.
a lot of really interesting, like, you know, little quips to Ethan, and he provides a lot of fun elements to the story. I love the ending with him. I mean, honestly, you should have played it. I don't know what to tell
we
you.
just mentioned Village. If you haven't played it, then you should have expected spoilers.
Just go to the next thing, because the rest of this will probably be spoilers. So just
Yeah.
go to, you know, the next one that we talk about. But, you know, I feel like the last part where he's like, what are you? And he's like, even I couldn't answer that question. I love that. I think it's hilarious. I think it's so... like, the Duke is my favorite. I love the little, like, mention of the Resident Evil 4 salesman where he's like, what do you buy in? And, like, the Duke says that, and then he's like, that friend of mine used to say that. And, like, I love it.
So cute.
I love the setting. The creepy village is incredible.
Yeah.
All of the, like, settings are really good, except for Rose, I think, is just kind of boring.
Yeah.
I don't love the, what is, the word is not warehouse. What is it called?
Factory.
Factory.
Yeah.
I don't love the factory, but I do love Heisenberg because he's sexy.
Heisenberg's so sassy.
And honestly, I think he's very compelling. I think
Yeah.
the fact that he was, like, stolen as a child and experimented on and now hates Miranda, I think that's a really compelling villain.
Absolutely.
I actually really love that.
Yeah.
I think most of them are compelling. I think Moreau is the only one that's kind of boring. I
Yeah.
just don't care.
Yeah.
I think Donna Benevenito is, like, incredible. Her house is so fun and scary.
Yeah, Angie is just a little spitfire.
Yeah, she's
such a
great.
cutie.
The twist, obviously, is crazy. It is a bummer at the end, but I don't know. I like that they built that up. I think that was such a good way to, like, close out a story. Just really good writing. I think Resident Evil is definitely known for, like, they close out that story, but it feels very episodic.
Yeah.
Like, especially with Chris and Leon, like, it's just very, like, okay, we got that one thing done.
Right.
To have it be, like, one full story arc that really felt like they had worked on together, to me, is, like, very masterful and very good writing. And to see that in a video game setting, I think is really cool. Like, I really enjoyed that. I don't know.
They really took the feedback, I think, of their fan base so well and so beautifully. Like, you can really tell that they, like, put a lot of thought into what fans, like, liked about certain games, didn't like about certain games, and really tried to see, like, how much of that they could really fit into this new game. Like, it takes all the best things of 4. You know, that little sprinkle of Chris in it is reminiscent of the kind of gameplay of 6, which, you know, I know a lot of people don't really like, but it's like you get that kind of little bit of action-y stuff without it being
It's almost like a love
overwhelming.
letter to the fans.
Exactly, and they really, you know, showed that they cared about the, you know, their fans. It's like, we make these games for you, so we're gonna make it exactly, you know, what you appreciate about this world, and they did it perfectly. You know, it was just perfect.
They did a great job. I think that that's a game I'll replay over and over again.
Absolutely.
It's just super fun. I do wish that there were multiple endings because I feel like there are a lot of interesting choices that could be made.
Yeah.
That I would love to do. But, you know.
Yeah, I mean, after this, I
want more.
am specifically going to seek out, like, fan fiction or, like, fan-written stuff about an alternate ending where Ethan does partner with Heisenberg.
There's already there.
I know, I just haven't read it. That's the only thing. I know it's out there. I just haven't. I've been decompressing from playing the game that I'm like, okay, now it's time to go check out what that alternate ending would be with the fans.
I love it. I love the, like, family element. It's just all around. It is a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move to number 9.
Okay, number 9.
Now we're getting into
get ready, you guys.
Controversial territory. Number 9 is Resident Evil 5.
Yeah. Take a pause if you need to go scream into a pillow. Do what you need to do emotionally to get back and hear our reasons. Okay.
I know that people. Okay. 5 is one that we played pretty early on. We actually didn't finish it the first time through because it was boring.
Yeah.
Sorry. But we played it because it was local co-op and it was recommended. People were like, 5 is like the best local co-op that Resident Evil ever's done, whatever. Yeah. I really did not like it.
No.
I thought that this is like my biggest complaint of any video game ever, is that it was tedious.
Yeah.
It was long. Like there was a lot of stuff that just wasn't that interesting.
No.
And to me, it felt like they didn't really put a lot of work into the environment.
Right.
Everything was the same color. It was very hard to differentiate between things. Like, it just felt almost lazy whenever they do that. I didn't enjoy it. I thought that, like, the way that they wrote Shiva was honestly kind of just off. Like, she doesn't really interact with Chris until like almost halfway through the game, and even then you almost learn nothing about her. I was like, why introduce this new character and then not give us anything to work with?
Right.
You know, she's really just not that interesting, and I feel like they could have done a lot more. I'm like, you have these two characters working off of each other. You could build so much into the story, and they really just missed the mark, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There are a lot of little things about this that I felt like really work against it. One of them is, like, we've talked about interesting co-op as far as Revelations 2. I felt like this one is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You have all the same skills.
Everything's the same.
You know, you have all the same guns. Everything is the same. And to me, that's very boring.
Yes.
I'm like, we're just playing next to each other. And I'm like, there can be good things. Like, if we were playing Gears of War or Call of Duty, then that makes sense.
Yeah.
But Resident Evil is a story-driven game. Like, these are not just, like, first-person shooters. Like, they definitely have, like, story. Like, plot is thick.
Yes.
There is a lot of lore.
Yeah.
That you just don't know if you're not, you know, it's like you don't need to know lore to play Call of Duty.
No.
So it's like, to me, to put that in there in a game that's so story-driven is just, like, boring and lazy, and I'm like, I know you guys could do better than this.
Right. And because of that structure that they did, they had to, you know, sacrifice the usual things that they do with, like, the plot, you know, without, it wasn't as immersive because they put, you know, that kind of even gameplay at the forefront of all of the story that usually is told in, like, cutscenes or interactions with the characters was turned into reading. The gamers had to read so many pages, so much exposition, and especially about the science. So much about just, like, the science.
Pages
of like, this, you know, bioterrorism. Like, I can't even tell you how much of the Ouroboros, like, things that we read. I mean, I know partially it's like, you know, we're trying to make content out of these.
And then I cut it all out.
Yeah, so, you know, we were reading these out loud for, the, you know, the viewer, you know, to be more accessible, but it was just like, I don't need to read, like, 8 pages of, like, the Ouroboros virus. Like, what is this? Life is strange? Like, you know, like...
Absolutely.
It just was way too much reading.
Yeah.
You know?
And it was like, it's not interesting. To me, it was like, this is a weird comparison, but it makes me think of the Fantastic Beasts series.
Yeah.
Where it's like the desire to give viewers lore about everything, and it's like, that's what our fans want, is they want lore for everything, deep lore for everything. And that's what that felt like, where it was like, they need the background for everything, all of the science needs all of this stuff just written out for them, and it's like, it's not really that important. And it's very jarring to go from this, like, you know, semi fast-paced gameplay to, like, reading 25 pages about a virus that's like really could be shortened down to a few lines of dialogue.
Right.
Like, you could have showed us this. You didn't need to write it all down. To me, it was like, it was almost lazy. It was like somebody wrote this down, and instead of turning it into like an actual game, they just copy and pasted it into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, I was like, oh, that's so frustrating. I just felt like there were so many parts where it was like they didn't try almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this is a very, like, petty thing, but it is connected to the whole, like, reading and all that stuff. The font that they picked for all of the reading was almost incomprehensible. Like, it was really just hard to read in general. It's like, not only do I even want to read this, but if I have to read it, can you just give it just a little clearer of a font? It was just like a little too messy looking that it was just like my eyes were hurting trying to read them, you know, which I know is very petty, but like, come on now. Like,
yeah, you're going to make me read all of this and then not even do it well.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there are a few like good things about it. I mean, I think Shiva could have been really good. I think she is kind of a cool character, like the things we do know about her.
Yeah.
But they really let me down with it. Blonde Jill is super hot, obviously. But again, it's like we don't get that build up until like more than halfway through the game. Like the first time we played it, we didn't even know that Wesker was there.
Right. We were like, what?
And we played it for a while. So it's like, that's too much to build up to one villain where it's like, you're just going to fuck around for like 3 chapters.
Right.
And then we're going to talk about it. I'm like, that's too much.
It's way too much. Yeah. Especially with like, I mean, going back to the way that 8 is structured. Yeah, the last hour of that, like, 8-hour game is, like, breakneck speed. So much is happening. Like, things that you know, may or may not have expected and stuff. But it wasn't like everything else before it didn't matter or, like, was, you know, like, dull or, like, tedious. It wasn't like they didn't think out everything that was coming before it. Like, it was... The reason the twist and, like, you know, everything of that last hour is so compelling is because we thought, like, based on the way the rest of the game is already interesting on its own, was building to something specific, just for them to turn it around and be like, we're not even worried about that. Like, look at all this other stuff that's happening.
Absolutely.
And it's, like, a really great misdirection of, like, not just skimping out for, you know, a few hours until you can finally get to this final plot point, and then you're like, well, this should be interesting enough to hold up the whole game. It's like, no, because your gamers don't even want to get to that point. They just turn off the game before they even find out that this is a plot point that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think, again, we'll have this video up soon, but of The Evil Within, that had a lot of really interesting points to it, and honestly, I feel like the story could be really compelling, but we never even got to the end of it, because at some point it's just like, we're doing the same thing over and over again. This is becoming a chore to play. It's not fun. And it's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter how compelling your ending is.
Right.
If the build-up isn't good.
Right.
And I just feel like such a letdown. I feel like they've definitely learned from their mistakes. Like, every game after it has not had that pitfall to it.
No.
But damn, 5, I just feel like it really missed the mark, and it makes it worse that people like it so much.
Exactly. It's like the worst part is, like, I feel like it probably, we, you know, wouldn't have such strong feelings against it. It was probably still really strong, but if we had just, like, looked at RE5 on a list and we're like, let's play that. But because there were so many recommendations of people being like, this is one of their best games ever, knowing how good their games can be, to come to this game, it was just like, this is what y'all choosing? This is what we represent? This is what we stand for? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Especially compared to our number 1 pick, which, let's get into it.
Oh,
we're going to do number 1, and then we're going to do number 10.
Yes.
So, and
strap
again,
in, folks.
If y'all have been paying attention to our channel, if you looked at anything, you might already know. Number 1 for us is Resident Evil 6.
Yes.
I know.
Gasp. Oh,
take a pause.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Put down the pitchforks. Everything's gonna be all right.
Allow us to make our case. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, plot. Just saying.
I mean, how you can even be a Leon stan and not love RE6, where he is in his final, like, prime form?
Yes.
It does not connect in my brain.
He's got that cake.
Yes.
Thank you for the cake, sir.
He's got that emo boy hair.
Yes.
He's brooding, that deeper voice. He is aged. He has experience, you know?
Absolutely. So, that is beautiful. So, this is also one of the first games we played together.
Yeah.
It is a great game for first time. Like, I just want to go into this first before we get into really the details of it. It is a great game for first time gamers.
Yes.
This is definitely my comfort game. Our comfort game. We know like every word to Jake and Sherry's. And when I went home for Christmas last year, I was trying to convince my mom to get to play video games. They own a PlayStation 4 for their grandkids and never use it. And I was like, it's good for you. Like, play video games, get engaged with what you're, instead of just falling asleep on the couch watching very boring British shows.
Right.
Which is what they do. So I was like, let's get this game. Like, this game is really fun. And I think you would be able to play it. Which she did. We played the first chapter of Leon and Helena's campaign.
Yeah.
The name right.
Yes.
And she did great. She didn't die once. I mean, obviously I was playing with her. I was playing as Helena, but I mean, it was like, it is a great game to start someone out with. She got overwhelmed and decided to never play it again because she's my mom, but it is a really good game to start with. It really helps you get through it, and the gameplay is difficult, but not like so difficult that you can't get through it. Right. And the amateur mode is very, very easy.
It is. Yeah.
And I think that's a great introduction. I love the different levels. So I think just that alone, I think that's really good. Yeah. I love the crossover of the campaigns. I think that is so compelling.
Yes, absolutely.
The way that they all interact and you meet all of these other characters on each of them, to me is very cool. Yeah. I'm like, that's good storytelling.
Absolutely.
And whenever you play, we play Leon first. Most people do, I'm sure. And then it's like, you get to play Jake and Sherry, but you meet them like halfway through and you're like, wait.
Yeah. Or like, I didn't even realize until we were playing it literally yesterday. And when Jake and Sherry get to that little like ledge kind of thing, before he has to like start running on the edge, like with the helicopter shooting at him, you get a glimpse of that bridge that's there. And I've always seen that bridge, but I didn't even recognize that was the bridge that like Chris and Piers are fighting on. Like, and you just get a little glimpse of it, but it's like everybody is here like all the time. Like, all the campaigns are just like so intertwined. It's perfect.
Yeah.
But,
It's such a cool way to do it. I think that's really cool. I love that there's like certain fights that you do with other characters.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of overlap with that, other than, I don't know, it's like there's not really, all of them interact at some point. Yeah. So it's I think that's a really cool way to do a story. The co-op is super fun. So you do get all the same guns for the most part. And it's basically the same as far as co-op goes, but there are like differences in what you do. So, for Jake and Sherry, and I think it's the same for Leon and Helena, one of them will lift up the other, and so you're on different paths. There's like little separations from each other, but you're very much doing the same thing. Yeah. But I don't think it's in a way where it's like, you still have to communicate, I guess. What I'm trying to say is like, you still have to work together very much so. So and I think that's the best way to do local co-op, because I think that's fun. Like problem solving together. Right.
It's like, you don't want to just be like silently sitting next to each other clicking a bunch of buttons. It's like you want to interact with your friend that you're playing these games with, for sure.
So I think that's really great. I love the locations.
Yeah, great locations.
I love Edonia.
Edonia. It's our favorite place. Yeah. We spent all of RE8 basically being like, well, if you're not going to name where in Europe you are, we are going to assume it's Edonia. Yes. And you can't tell us otherwise.
Everyone's like, it's Romania.
We're like...
They never even said that. They just like had that one type of money. But like... Yeah. It's Edonia. You know it.
It's Edonia.
So I love the locations. I think it's really fun. I love that they go to China. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. It's like, okay, we're going to Africa in 5 and going to China. I'm like, doing some traveling.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I think is really interesting about this game is the villains are very compelling, I think. I think that like Simmons obviously is like very clearly evil, which makes it hilarious. Yeah. But he's pretty fun, and I love the mix-up of how different campaigns see these villains.
Absolutely. Of, like, who they're chasing and who they're going after and, like, what their end goal is and, like, how they change when they run into each other, which, like, goes into a really good thing of, like, they mislead the viewer in that way as well. Like, depending on which campaign you're playing is, like, a different view on the whole perspective of the situation as a whole. And especially with the, use of, like, Ada and her clone as well, and who interacts with the real Ada and who interacts with the clone, you know, and especially with the way that the campaigns are lined up, where you know, instinctually want to go from, like, first to last. So you're starting with Leon and Helena, going after Derek, you know, Simmons. He's, like, their big bad, and that's what they stick with the whole time. But, you know, the way Ada influences the way they see Derek, or, like, you know, with Jake and Sherry specifically changing to go fight, you know, Simmons after running into Leon and Helena, after, you know, all that stuff of you know, and then getting all the way down to Ada's campaign, and then being able to see from her perspective, finding out she even has a clone. Yeah, exactly. It's like everything changes. So it's like not only, you know, a great way to have completely different storylines that are still connected, you know, so it's not just like, why are we having like 4 different games in one game? But it's like a way to keep what is a central story still very interesting. It's Absolutely. Like you never get to a point in any of the campaigns, no matter where you start with, of like, oh, I know everything about this game now, even if I'm playing a new campaign. Like, you're finding out an exorbitant amount of, like, more information and perspective, which is so cool.
It is fascinating to see how these games shift, where a lot of them are very, like, run-of-the-mill survival horror. Obviously, they kind of reinvent this genre when they make 7. But this one is, like, I don't really see it as survival horror. Like, it's very much a just action game, basically. And I feel like it makes a lot of sense about who these main characters are. Like, Leon is well established in the RE universe at this point. You know, he has been through it in 2 and 4. Chris is just straight up military. You know, Jake is a mercenary, and Sherry is an NSA agent. And, you know,
who grew up around bioterrorism. Like, she's been around, you know, terrorism since a little girl. You know?
And Ada is, like, the best of the best, like, secret agent, basically. I mean, it doesn't make sense for this to be survival horror at this point, because all of these characters have been in these situations before.
Right, exactly. And it's like none of them are coming into these situations, like, you know, not prepped with, like, ammo and things. Like, they are coming here to do specific things. They are carrying out, like, specific orders, or, you know, doing some sort of thing, you know, going rogue together. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't make sense to be the kind of Ethan character of, like, oh, shit, there's a bunch of crazy people, I need to go find some ammo and shoot at them. Like, they're coming prepared. So, yeah, it wouldn't make sense for them to be in this kind of survival horror situation that you would expect out of an RE game.
Yeah, which makes the change to 7 really fascinating to me. To change, because that's the first one where it's just like a total lay person, basically.
Right. Absolutely.
All of the other ones have at least something. I mean, like, Leon is the most of a baby, but it's like he's still gonna be a cop. Like, he's still gone through training.
Right.
So that's definitely interesting. I also love the strong, like, anti-military, anti-establishment themes in RE6. I love that. I think it's really something that is kind of a bedrock of Resident Evil. Like, if you really follow through on the lore, it's very anti-corporation.
Yes.
Militaries are always corrupt. Like, it's kind of has these strong themes, and I feel like 6 is one of the best representations of it.
Absolutely.
I think it loses it a little bit in 7 and 8. I would love for them to really bring that back, because I feel like it is such an important part to that series.
Right. Yeah. And I can understand, too, like, part of me does understand, you know, kind of that initial, like, dislike of, you know, longtime RE fans when they play 6, because that's not what they're expecting out of an RE game. So, you know, they're not a big fan of the kind of action-y stuff. So part of me understands that. It's not what you were expecting originally, so it can be a letdown. The problem for me for that is that, I mean, I don't know if they're the same people, but it's, like, generally within the RE, like, fandom, 6 is seen as bad, and 5 is seen as good. And I'm like, okay, but what is 5 if not an action game as well? Like, that's not a survival horror either. Like, what makes that one so good, you know, in comparison to 6? And I'm like, if anything, the, you know, premise and, like, the idea of the gameplays are almost identical. It's just that 6 is done way better. Sorry, it's fine. It's just that 6 is done way better and, you know, has a better story and all of that. It's like I can't really feel for, you know, people who don't like 6 because of, oh, they just tried to placate COD, you know, players or something, they wanted to branch out on their audience, when I'm like, was 5 really any different? Like, you could say the same thing about 5, it just sucked.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think everything about 6 was done really well, so I can't really feel for the complaint of, well, I don't really want the action game in the RE universe. Well, you were fine with it in 5, like, how were Capcom supposed to know that you wouldn't like that in 6, you know?
Right. It's like they, you know, it made sense with the way that the games were going, which is why I think of why they did such a big overhaul with 7.
Right.
And why we'll never see anything like 6 again.
Right.
And we probably will never hear from Jake Mueller again, which is tragic for me.
So tragic.
Because I love Jake Mueller. I think he's so fun.
Yeah.
But, you know, I get it a little bit, but I'm very anti-purist as far as, like, my opinion on video games. This was a big issue in Silent Hill. To go back to it is... people loved the first 4 games, and anything that was made after was, you know, blasphemous.
Right.
And not good at all. And I was just like, it's so boring.
Yeah.
Like, such a boring way to exist. And I feel like that is very much how people are, which is a great segue into our last pick. What is in the last place?
Yeah.
And even if we played every single side game, I think that this would still be in last place.
Yes. It's like, our list is 10 long because these are the games that we chose to pick, but if we included all of those other side games, you know, played them all, this would still probably be at the bottom of whatever that number would be.
And if you have been paying attention, then you already know, our last pick is Resident Evil 4.
Yes.
The worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst.
As I said earlier, this was the first Resident Evil game I ever played when I was a little tiny baby.
Yeah.
And even then, I remember playing it for a while and then asking my brother how far I was into the game, because I've been playing it for hours and hours and hours. And he was like, you're maybe a fourth of the way through.
God.
And I was like, I'm not finishing it.
No.
And I finished it. I replayed it whenever we started playing all the Resident Evil games. We have never played it for the channel. We never will.
No.
And I was like, this game is so annoying.
Yeah.
So let's get into the reasons. Number 1, we have complained about this many times already.
Yeah.
But it is so tedious.
It's...
oh my god.
Oh my god.
It's like, not every room has to have 6 of the same guys in it.
No.
Not every single space that we go into has to be the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes just building the ambiance of a creepy location, i.e. 7, is better than putting like 65 people in every single room. That's not scary, it's boring.
Exactly.
Like, we're just doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's so long, and for what? I'm like, it's very tedious.
Yeah.
My second big, this is like, if everything else in this game was perfect and this was the only thing, it would put it at the last spot.
Yeah.
And that is that there are no subtitles.
Yeah, it's completely ableist.
The main villains are speaking in, like, goofy language, like goofy accents.
Yeah.
That clearly the person who's acting probably doesn't speak in those accents in real life.
Yeah.
It is almost incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And I already can't understand things very well anyways.
Yeah.
No subtitles.
No.
I don't know what the plot of 4 is.
No.
Like, I don't know what happens.
No.
Because they'll be like, blah, 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 and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I can't hear you, my guy.
Yeah.
So that is...
Yeah.
Like, they really were like, fuck deaf people.
Absolutely, because they have the original Resident Evil from 1996, whatever, remade in 2001, has subtitles.
Yes.
Like, there's no excuse why this is the only one. You know, and with the ability with, like, these digital games as well to do, like, software updates and stuff like that, to add a subtitle track. Like, I don't understand what the problem is.
Yeah. That's so frustrating.
So frustrating.
Let's talk about... Okay, we've talked about this several times, but I feel like this was the main reason I really wanted to bring it up, or we wanted to bring it up, was it's comparison to The Evil Within.
Right, yeah.
Which, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's... Oh, God. It's the tedium that's the main connection between the two, of just, like, every single room has, a million guys that are all the same, and it's just all the...
repetitive.
All the tasks of an action game without the forward motion. And, it's the organization of all of the tools and stuff, of just spending hours of just moving puzzle pieces around, of, like, your health sprays and everything. It's just, there's no forward motion of the plot. It's like, where are we even going? It's like, I don't want to... And it's not like the same way of like a super long game with side quests like Assassin's Creed or like The Witcher or even like Tomb Raider, where you have like, the main quests, so you have to go on the main story, but you have like the side quests are all individually interesting. They all have their little mini stories, like other people that you're dealing with and stuff. There's an interesting element to each one of those. So even though you're going to be playing this game for like, several hours, you want to, because each one has something interesting about it.
Right. They put the work in.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just one full story that just takes so long, and it's just everything you don't want in a video game.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of similarities. I felt like, we talked about this when we played Evil Within in the village setting at the beginning, and that's one of the best things about 4, and I honestly think it works against it as far as on our list, because this location should be creepy. This location should be great. Yeah. And to me, it's just like, it's so annoying of a game to play that it almost like makes me hate the fact that it should be good. And Evil Within was very similar. It's like it had a lot of these same elements that could be really cool. Yeah. And then once you get into the nitty-gritty of the game, it's just going through the same tunnel 60 times because they feel the need to add buffer time. And it's like, just because your game is long doesn't mean that it's good. Yeah. It's like, if you're going to make a long game, you have to put a lot of work in. You can't just make all of your elevator rides 45 seconds each. Right. Like, you actually have to write and like do things, and I felt like that's not what they did with 4. It's not what they did with Evil Within. No. And for both, I'm like, it's unforgivable. It makes it not fun, and it's like, what's the whole point of playing these games and not to enjoy yourself? Right. It's like buffer time on its own is not what creates suspense. It's like you have to create the suspense to fill those kind of like long dark hallways or, whatever kind of environment that you're in, so that, if you're trying to scare the, players, that they'll actually be scared. Not just, like, putting, them in the same exact situations, because, if anything, that's more comforting to be like, well, I already know what this looks like, so you're already putting them in a situation where they feel safer, and then it's like, well, that's not what they wanted out of this game. They wanted that kind of suspense, they wanted that horror, and they're just not getting it. Right. Like, subverting their expectations and just failing to do so. My last point for RE4, and I recognize that probably a lot of men don't feel this way. Yes. I find Ashley to be unbearable. I don't like that she is an 18-year-old with the voice of a 4-year-old. Yep. Why her voice sounds like that, and she's like helpless and doesn't, do anything, and is just constantly being kidnapped, and it feels like a child, and then she's also coming on to Leon. Yeah. And to me, it makes me very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Very much bordering on pedophilia. Absolutely. Just a bit. Yeah. I think that's another reason that Village is such a delight, is that it is the polar opposite. Absolutely. 9 foot tall. Yeah. 45-year-old woman. Yeah. Dom, like, she is in charge. Yeah, she is the opposite of Ashley Graham. Yeah, has the body of a woman as well. I mean, obviously not every woman is 9 feet tall, but, like, her shape, her silhouette is of that of a normal adult woman, Ashley looks like a kid. Yeah. And to me, that makes me very uncomfortable. Absolutely. That she is almost portrayed in a sexual way, but it looks like a child. I'm like, I have no problem. I know that some people do, but I'm like, I have no problem with, like, sexualized characters. I think that's fine. I'm like, if you want to put them in sexy outfits, even though it doesn't make sense for that world, I really don't care. I think it can be fun. I am all for, like, thirsting after... men and women characters in video games. Absolutely. That's not the problem. Yeah. It's the fact that she's childlike. Exactly. It's like, that is the thing that really gets to me. Yeah, her character was created and shaped for the pedophilic male gaze. Yeah. Whereas, like, I mean, you can look at Heisenberg and Alcina in 8, and it's like, these are adults were, sexualized because it's fun to, see, characters, like, in a sexual way for an adult game. In that light, it's like, it's fine. That kind of sexualization, I think, is, as well, is completely fine. It's just when it gets to that, you're catering to a very problematic and specific audience. So it's like, why are we doing this? Right. Yeah. It's like, I feel the need to clarify that, because I do think there is a lot of discourse about the way, especially women, are portrayed in video games, and I understand it. just purely as sexual objects, but I think that making them villains and putting the power in their hands and making them adults, like, really subverts that, and I really don't have any problems with it.
Right, exactly.
I'm like, so my complaints about Ashley Grammer, they are very specific to the way that it is pedophilic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
and that's just, it makes me really despise that game a lot.
Yeah.
So, that's our list.
Yep. So, hopefully we didn't completely wreck your world with this list.
I'm sure somebody will be very mad about it.
Yes.
Feel free to let us know your opinions on any of these games. I mean, we'd love to hear about it. We love all of the Resident Evil games.
Yes, we do.
Except for 4. And, we love the Resident Evil fandom.
Yeah.
And it's definitely our favorites. So we would love to hear from y'all. What are your picks? You know, what order would you put them in? And honestly, if there's any of the side games that we didn't talk about that you guys really recommend, please let us know, because I would love to play some more of them.
Absolutely.
There's just so many, I'm almost overwhelmed.
Yeah, there are a lot. Yeah, and the perspective too for ourselves is like we only ever started playing these in like September of 2020.
Yeah.
Like together, anyways. And so, that's not that much time. It's only, May 2021, as of now, that we've been flying through this universe.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's still a lot to play, but, we've been getting through a lot of it.
Definitely.
So, for a 22, 23-year-old universe, we're doing pretty good of getting our whole perspective. But yeah, any other perspectives that you guys have, we absolutely welcome. This is where we're feeling right now. And we can't wait to see what's next. Capcom is amazing.
I will play every Resident Evil game until I die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every single one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Okay, guys, thanks so much for listening to this chilled out episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out our Patreon that is linked in our description so that we can keep making cool content for you all.
Yes.
All right. Bye.